I've had the pleasure of having kind of multiple conversations on Gynocurious with different folks about how to build a better, less self-shaming and critical voice about one's own body. There are many approaches to this pursuit. Today, I want to continue this conversation since I don't think we can ever kind of speak enough about this issue. My guest today, her work helps female-identified bodies find peace and acceptance in their changing bodies, how to embrace health and healing in a manner that is less about loathing and despair, but instead about informed acceptance and integrity. Welcome to Gynocurious. I am Dr. Amy Novatt. We are here to investigate what it means to be a healer and to be healed. Please let us know what your thoughts are by sending comments to radiofreerhinecliffe.org and give us 5 stars on whatever app you're listening. So Nina Manolson is joining us today. She is the founder of Body Peace. She is a coach dedicated to helping women end the constant battle with food and body and instead cultivate a deeply respectful and trusting relationship with themselves. Through her anti-diet, feminist approach, Nina empowers women to stop the exhausting cycle of dieting and to embrace a compassionate, empowered way of eating and living. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you, Amy. It is a delight to be here with you.
And it's a delight to have you. So you got to tell me, how and why did you start this journey into the work that you're doing? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in this arc?
Yeah. So my work is called Body Peace. And the irony is I was the expert at body war. That is literally what led me into this work, is that I started my first diet when I was 9 years old. And it created a cascade of decades and decades of being in the battle, being in the war, being in the shame, being in the hate, being in the management of my body. And to the point where I felt the word I always used at that moment was like, I'm so bored with the conversation in my head, but it wasn't really like boredom, like, yawn boredom. It was demoralized and kind of flattened by it. Like, really? Is this what I'm going to say to myself when I go and teach or work? Is that I'm still not enough because of the shape of my body or what I just ate yesterday? And so I was fundamentally feeling like this has got to change. And I also had little kids. And I was like, this has definitely got to change. I can perpetuate this legacy that my body as it is wrong. And so in this personal pursuit, I created a professional path for myself of becoming a therapist and then getting deep into the world of health coaching, but ultimately of psychology of eating work, body trust work, and really cultivated this body of work that I've trademarked, which is Body Peace.
Thank you. Thank you. So often when I have guests on Gynocurious, their professional aspirations and arcs are so much a reflection of their inner experience, their personal experiences. It so forms us. And I like some of the words that you use, this legacy. So I want to kind of dive into that because why, this is a rhetorical question, but I want us to say it out loud. Why is there such a paradoxical legacy in our world of adoration and admiration for women's bodies? I mean, in art, in film, etc. And yet, at the same time, so much shame over centuries and centuries.
Yeah.
What would you say to that paradox?
So first of all, I love the question of like, why is there such adoration? Because to me, that's so self-explanatory. The female form is magnificent. And it's full of abundance. It's full of possibility. It's full of constant change. Within 1 month of a woman's life, we go through so many different experiences of ourselves. Never mind the whole arc of our life of whether it's fertility, infertility, perimenopause, menopause, pregnancies, miscarriages, all the joyous, all the pain, all of it. We have this incredible wonder, miracle of a body that deserves all the reverence, all the paintings, all the hanging nudes of the world. Like, wow, what an absolute miracle our body is. So, wouldn't that be amazing if that was the model for us personally within ourselves to wake up every day and go, wow, how lucky am I to be living in this wonder, in this absolute miracle of biology and soul and cells, like incredible. But instead, we go look in the mirror and go, oh, what's wrong with me? Oh my gosh, my butt, my thighs, my stomach.
It's true. My newest internal narrative is, oh, when did I get that line on my face? And I have this, again, I think we all have these internal dialogues, and it could be, for some of us, it starts at our toes, goes all the way to our nose. And for some of us, it's hits a myopia of just around our thighs, etc. But it's such an interesting, the reality is that our bodies are so resilient, unbelievably flexible, and learning constantly. And yet we all live, kind of many of us, I should say, are mired in what's wrong. So, with the understanding that the world is so judgmental and has shamed our bodies for so long, I mean, we never seem young enough. We never seem thin enough. How is it possible that we can develop this relationship that you're talking about, this relationship of love and honoring and respect? How is it possible?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say it absolutely is possible. Then I want to reel back to the other question that you asked, is how did we get from this place of wonder to this place of body hate? Because when you're saying, how is it possible? First, we have to look at, wait, what happened here that we got such a ruptured relationship with our body? And how did that rupture? Couple of reasons. One is, it's too general a term, but basically misogyny, right? Let's make women less powerful. And how do we do that? Let's attack their body. We also, how do we make the culture of the predominant culture more powerful? So a lot of body hate and body shame is riddled with racism, right? A body that isn't, tall and thin and blonde isn't acceptable, right? Then you add on to that the culture, the machines being made. So you had clothes that were being made for us. We made our own clothes. Then suddenly we had the Industrial Revolution. And then, great, we have clothes that we will make for you. And now we put numbers on that clothes. We put numbers on that clothing so that then we have sizes. Oh, we have sizes. Now we can decide which size is better, and we can create a $72 billion diet industry to help us be in the smaller sizes.
I have never thought of it in that context. It's fascinating. You're right. I've thought of, number one, the misogyny, two, the racism and sexism, but I've not thought about how the industry of garb has created these boxes into which we feel like we have to fit. So if we are between sizes 8 and 10, but we aren't quite an 8 and we aren't quite a 10, there's always an adjustment we feel like we have to make. Well, darn it. Yeah, you're right. We used to create clothes that fit our bodies, not fit our bodies to the clothes. Wow.
Yes.
That's so tangible too. Yeah. Thank you.
It is. And it's something actually we can work with. And this is not a sponsored ad or anything, but there are sites. One of them is eshakti.com that I go to, and I submit my actual measurements, and they make clothes for my actual body, not some size that I have to go to a store and go, see, I'm not right. My body's not okay. And that's not the only site, but it's worth investigating. How do I get, not for a gazillion dollars, not couture fashion, but regular clothing that actually fits me instead of me trying to fit it?
I've had the pleasure of traveling to India, where bespoke clothing is just an everyday norm. And it's not just for the rich and famous. It's really for everyday folks, with this concept in mind that everybody every body is different, and you can take a fabric and make it work for you. It's so true. That's a great recommendation for our audience. Like, go places where they will honor your body and treat it like everybody in terms of, hey, yeah, we can fit it to that. We can fit it to that. We can make it yours.
Right.
Interesting.
And so to go back to that question of, so how do we actually change this relationship that's based in shame and hatred?
A long-standing narrative. That's right.
Yes.
How do we?
So first we have to go, wow, didn't create this relationship, right? We just named it, right? Misogyny, racism, the Industrial Revolution, the diet culture. Now we've got the anti-aging culture with us too, right? So it's noticing this isn't mine. I am not at fault. I am not the problem here. And I know that sounds trite, but it's really the basic of moving from a relationship of body hate to a relationship of body peace. It's acknowledging, wait a second, the problem is outside of me. We have been conditioned. I was conditioned since I was 9 years old that I was the problem. My clients that come to me go, I am faulty. I don't have willpower. I don't have control. My body's never been right. It's not you. It is not you. We have been trained into this. And thankfully, we can actually support ourselves to get out of it. But first, it's acknowledging, wow, that's a lot of pressure coming in at me. And now I can recognize it. Oh, there's an ad selling me weight loss. Oh, there's an ad selling me that I should be 18 again. Oh, there's an ad telling me that my hips or my butt shouldn't be that way because the genes right now, the fashion is whatever, low slung, skinny, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So,
but this doesn't, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate. You know, it doesn't mean that there isn't some responsibility that we have to the way we take care or not take care of our own bodies, right?
Yes. Well, that's the great thing, right? Once we say, this is not my fault, and that culture does not get to dictate my relationship. Oh, now I get to own my relationship. Oh, this is my relationship. How do I want to be in a relationship? The relationship with our body is the most important relationship of our life. We are born into this body and we will die in this body. So how do you want this relationship to go, right? Many of us who have been in partnered relationship at some point gone, wow, this relationship could use some help. I need some therapy. This is not going well. This is not how I want to be treated in a relationship. And this is not how I want to be acting in a relationship. Same goes for our relationship with our body. We can change the trajectory of how we relate to ourselves. And that means, in your words, you said, taking responsibility. The way I like to think of it is being an ally with our body instead of an adversary, because our culture has set it up that we should have this adversarial, managerial relationship with our body. But who wants to be managed or aggressed every day? It's no fun. So more than taking responsibility, which somehow kicks up for people this sense of like, are you kidding me? I'm like responsible for every other thing in the world. At the end of the day, I do not want to be making myself a dinner and being a grown-up. Is instead of being like, I am now responsible and I have to be in like that management mode, is to shift into, how can I be on my side? How can I ally?
It's so interesting. You use the descriptive anti-diet feminist approach to caring for one's body. And it was the first time I've ever seen that feminist approach towards caring for one's body. And it makes so much sense now. I mean, I'm a feminist and proud to say so. But what you just described is the act of, how do I put this? It's a, we've, for so long, our role in the world is taking care of everyone else, right? That we are the nurturers. Our job, if you will, is to take care of the world. And I think part of what feminism brought with it, with the movement, was, in a way, I can do that, sure. But what I'm really going to figure out is how to take care of me in the face of all the isms, of all the paradoxes, of all of the negativism, right? And so, yeah, it's about being, you use the word ally. I like the idea of aligned, that we are aligned with our body. You know, listen, we're all born with certain genetics, right? You know, I'm a 5'1" woman. I will never be 6 feet tall. I've lusted after those kind of legs, but I never will be, right? So part of what I had to learn, again, yes, at a really young age. I remember when I was, I think maybe I was 7 or 8, and it was the first time I was in a mixed chorus, and I was always on the bottom rung. I was never on the top of the, you know, the what were they called? Those
The
bleachers,
risers.
the risers. Thank you. And I felt so boxed in by that. And at first, it was like, you know, kind of stomp my foot, like, no, I want to be on the top one. And then I began to realize, this is who I am. This doesn't mean I'm not a good singer. It just means that this is my place on the risers. But it was an interesting kind of silly example of being aligned with my height in a way that I struggled with, you know, for whatever number of months, years, you know, throughout my life. So
I totally relate to that because I grew up on 17 magazine. And so the model was I was supposed to be tall, blonde, and thin. I am none of the above. I will never be any of the above. My genetics are not such that I could be any of the above.
That's right.
You know, and one of the things you're speaking to so eloquently, Jane, is this idea of ownership.
My sister, she just said Jane, my sister, because we look so much alike.
It's
great. It's great.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So to the audience out there, I have a younger sister and we resemble one another. And Nina has met my sister, but not me in the past. So that's where Jane comes in. But we will fold her in because she's part of this, you know, she and all the other female bodies we know is part of this conversation.
That's very funny that was what, like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, oh, Jane, there it is. So Amy, one of the things that you're speaking to is ownership, right? Owning our own body, claiming it as ours. And that's part of the feminist approach, right? We are claiming ourselves. We're claiming our own power. And to go back to this idea of a feminist approach, so feminist psychology is really powerful in this idea that it touts how women heal together, how women in community see one another, see ourselves. And that's where we can do our evolving, our growing, our healing. And it's one of the things that why it's in my bio is because I really believe that community in this work is incredibly healing. I work a lot with women in groups and body peace keepers and body peace sages, small groups. And what I've seen over and over years of doing this is that when women are in community and then they extend this incredible compassion, this incredible understanding to someone else's body story, to someone else's body journey, it shows them in their own words that this is how they can treat themselves.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the world of patriarchy has taught women to not like one another and be in competition with one another and to shame one another. And that is so much a part of the, if you will, the revolution or the movement that has to continue to happen, is creating community with female bodies that is about respect, admiration, empowerment. And, you know, there are a lot of communities that are working towards that. But man, that jealousy and envy stuff can be so toxic. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, it might just be literally what they are, but body peace. Can you talk about that verbiage? You used body peace, and then there was something else about people in this group who work towards
body peace keepers. Body peace sages.
Thank you. That's what
Yeah. So first, let me say something about body peace and why I chose that as my, you know, what I'm putting the box that I'm putting all my work into is that thankfully in this day and age, we're getting these movements of body positivity and body love. But what I noticed with my clients is it just felt like more pressure. Oh, I'm supposed to be always positive about my body.
Right.
Well, the reality is we're aging. I'm aging. I'm not every single day positive about my body when I wake up and suddenly my knees like that. You didn't do that yesterday. I'm not feeling so positive about you.
I like when I wake
right?
up and it looks like my grandmother's knees, and I'm like, when did she come to visit?
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, the idea of body positivity is a little aspirational. It's a little like pie in the sky. Like we're going to be yay positive. And we can get very into the toxic positive in our culture, as well as this idea of body love. Yes, fundamentally, do we want to be in this place of deep love with ourselves? Yes, but it can again feel pressure. Well, I'm not loving myself. And I don't wake up every day and look at my partner and go, oh my gosh, every day he is the bee's knees. I love him so much. There's sometimes I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? Right? That's a real relationship. And so to put this idea, this title of we're supposed to be in body love, we're supposed to be in relationship love every single second is too much. And it continues this hustle that there's this right way to be. And so body peace is much more sustainable. It's much more something, it's a practice. It's not a place we get to and now I love myself and now I'm a gymnast and I've stuck my landing and I will never move off of body love or body positivity. I just think it doesn't actually work for real relationship with ourselves. Whereas body peace is something that can take us all the way to the end because it's a practice of being in care, in being in compassion, in being in conversation, in being in connection with ourself. We don't have to be ooey gooey, you're the best every second, but we can be, I'm on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a kind of a tangential comment or question. You know, as a clinician, I'm often faced with a body who walks into the office and they are not eating healthy. They are carrying extra weight, and their diagnoses is kind of adding up, and much of it is associated with carrying too much weight and eating poorly. And I might start a conversation about how about we kind of change your relationship with food and exercise. And they say to me, I love my body. Stop fat shaming me. And I don't really want to change my ways. So this is a different kind of love relationship, if you will. Can we speak how you might respond to someone who says that to you?
Yeah. So if someone's coming and saying, you know what, I'm good. I'm really okay with my body the way it is. And you, as their physician, have concerns, health concerns, but they're not holding those concerns. Is it their moral obligation that they have to suddenly be healthy in our culture? Right? It begs the question, it invites the question of, is it mandatory that you be working out every day? And if they want that life, if they want to be vibrant, if they want to be able to get down off the floor and get back up, if they want to be around when they, there's grandchildren or when they're, 90, then okay, if that's what you want, let's talk about how to make that happen. But if you're happy where you're at, am I going to force you to change? To me, that's asking too much.
What you're bringing into our conversation is medical autonomy, and it's a very big conversation, which we're not going to really go there today because I think it's getting us off point to some degree. But what you're speaking about is that we all have a relationship with our body that's our own, and that no one really gets to impose, whether it's a physician or it's 17 magazine. No one has the right. I think I'm going to use that word, right, to impose their way of thinking on to me, even if there is some risk associated with it, medical risk, maybe even taxpayer risk. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I remember, this is, again, a little tangential, but this was years ago. I was reading about a fellow who owned a lot of hotels down in Florida, and he created his own health organization, got rid of the HMOs and decided to create his own health organization, and that all his employees would be taken care of by this health organization. And he mandated that if you carried a certain amount of weight, you were given a certain amount of time to lose it. If you were a smoker, you had a certain amount of time to stop smoking, because he said it's more expensive to take care of someone who is obese or a smoker. And I'm giving you the opportunity to get better so that I can pay less. It was a very ethically complex conversation. Did he have the right? Did he not have the right? Was it, again, objectification? It was just, I think it's an interesting conversation.
It is medical ethics, body autonomy, right? The moral imperative to be healthy in our culture, how our culture, puts on a pedestal health, right? So I have a amazing nephew who's an extreme athlete who goes, hanging off of cliffs all over the world. And everybody's like, he's so healthy. And I'm like, really? You think so? He's like literally taking his life in his hands every time he hangs off of these crazy places. And yet, what does our culture say? He's amazing. He's so healthy. He's taking care of himself, right? So what is our idea? What are we putting on a pedestal? What's our definition of health? And for him, it's healthy, right? He's supporting his nervous system. He's supporting his joy in life. He's supporting his pleasure, right? But really, the risks are very, very high in terms of his actual longevity on this one. So it invites us to ask, what is our personal definition of well-being and health? And what is the relationship that we want with our body? And what are we hoping for as we age, as we evolve in this life in terms of our capability, in terms of our body experience?
Yeah. There are so many biases that are running through our own personal narratives and our external narratives. People who are obese are unhealthy and thin people are healthy. Well, I've seen some really unhealthy, slim people.
Right.
that again, that all women should be tall, thin, and blonde. And I mean, all these narratives that are God, they're thick. They just surround us. So why don't you give us some kind of practical, if you will, ways in which our listeners might just begin to shift the story they have in their own head, and then how to kind of get rid of the pressures of all the shit that is constantly around us, the noise.
Yeah. So,
and that's a big question.
Word, yes, that noise is also a whole other conversation, because we're hearing, around GLP-1s, we're hearing about, it stops the noise of all of our food desires and everything. So that's a whole other conversation. But let me start with how do you start this work? How do you step into body peace? And the place that I really invite people to step into is, how's the relationship? Just like if you were to go into a therapist's office and you were sitting with a partner and the therapist said, so how's it going? Tell me, how's it going? Right? And you would say, this is how I'm feeling about this relationship. And sometimes we don't know. And so this is where this is a very practical tip and Amy, you can do it too if you want, which is close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, and just feel your hand and say, hello, body. Hello, body. And what that does is start a conversation, because most of us are not actually having a conversation with our body. We are having a running tirade not with, at our body. And what we want to start cultivating is, I am with my body. I am for my body. I am not at or on or attacking my body. And that simple phrase, hello, body, when you sit to eat, when you're taking a shower, when you're in the car, is a way of turning towards yourself and acknowledging this is a relationship. And I want to start, just like Amy, when I got on, hi, Amy. Right? We say hello, we greet as a way of making space for a relationship. And that fundamentally is the beginning. making space for an actual, supportive, respectful, compassionate relationship with self.
This is, in a way, a definition of a meditation. This is when we sit to meditate and people say, I don't know how to do it, or my mind keeps running through the grocery list when I'm trying to meditate. The fact is that even great yogis will say, oh, yeah, I get distracted by what's going on with my sister-in-law, and then I have to bring myself back to my breath, to my mantra, to this relationship that you're speaking with. And that makes it very tangible, Nina, so thank you. It really, it's just a way of having a dialogue with this body that we only have once, and just kind of checking in on a regular basis. And again, as you've pointed out so respectfully and honestly, is sometimes it's going to be just a bunch of growls like, I'm angry at you, or I shouldn't have eaten those chocolate chip cookies, or whatever it is. And then figuring out how to quiet that anger and the growling and just say, okay, how do I restore the peace? How do I restore the breath? How do I just sit down again? God, we're so in a rush, all of us. It's just a rush, and it's a frequent conversation on Gynocurious, like how to slow everything down. I'm not saying throw in the towel. I'm just saying take a moment. Yeah, thank you.
But fundamentally, to be able to know that you can take a moment, you have to know that there's another possibility, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in our relationship with our body, we're given as a culture kind of three choices, right? You can hate and shame your body. That I will call that just body hate. Then you could be into body management, right? I am going to manage my body. Those are two types of relationships.
And that's going to the gym every day. That's working out for an hour and a half. That's okay.
Right. That's starting the next diet tomorrow. I am going to manage. I'm going to be in control. I'm going to pull up, the boots with the, get my bootstraps going, or whatever that saying is, right? Like I am going to be really aggressive. Body management is an aggressive relationship. And if I'm successful, then I get body love, right? That's the choice. But the reality is there are other relationships we can have with our body. We can have body peace. We can have body compassion. We can have body awareness. And that's where we want to move. But we don't have the template. That's what we want to learn, right? There's a masterclass that I have on my website, which is the Body Peace Masterclass. It really goes into there are other relationships we can have with our body. We're just never taught about them. And I had a client who said to me, I feel like I missed this day in school. And I was like, no, we never got this day in school.
That's right.
We never got this day. We were taught to be in the fight, to be in the body fight.
It feels like the perfect segue to talk about medicine and the medications, the big pharma's impact on people's bodies right now. And just an aside, when I was in training, we never had a conversation about how to think about the body in this way. Never. It was always a fight. It was always about pathology. It was always about a lack of willpower. And that's what obesity was. Never about biology. I mean, until more recently, where there's an embracing of, hey, wait a second, there is some biology here, there is genetics here, there is cultural, there's nuance, parts of our lives that impact how we eat, how we exercise, what we do. So I guess I'm sure you have clients who come in and say, my doctor wants me to do the following. And either some of them are ready to embrace it, some of them are willing to fight it, some of them are like, I don't know. Can you talk about that conversation? Because I suspect you encounter it a lot.
Yeah.
So
I have clients who have come in, many clients, and said, I feel terrible. I went to the doctor and they told me I need to lose weight. Okay. So first of all, that's a really interesting thing for a physician to say, because the statistics are that 95% of people who go on diet gain their weight back, if not more, 2 to 5 years. So for a doctor to say, go lose weight is like saying, go get a car now, a car that's actually going to drive backwards. But I'm suggesting this because that's the best we got.
It's the only language they know. It's the only language they know. Yep.
Right. So there's a pressure, go do something, go fix yourself, which does not feel collaborative, does not feel supportive, mostly feels shaming.
That's right.
Okay, so now we have this world of GLP-1 drugs, the Ozempics, the Wegovy's, all of those. And so now my clients, many people are walking into offices and either asking for it or their doctors are saying, you know what, why don't you go on a GLP-1? And then, right, finally, I have something in my pen and prescription pad that will fix my perceived problem of you, which is your size, which doesn't actually get to anything about what they actually want in their journey of health. So, okay, that's a whole other conversation. So the GLP-1 conversation is really interesting because people are flocking to it. Great, this is going to cure me. But there are a lot of issues baked in, and it's very problematic. And first of all, I don't want to shame anybody, right? I always say I have no shame for anybody on their body journey. I used it all up on myself. I am out. I have no more, right? Everybody has body autonomy. You can do whatever you want. It's your body. And there's so much societal pressure. We talked about it, Amy, the pressure to be thin, the way and the way our culture treats people when they're thin versus when they're in larger bodies is very different.
That's right.
So if a doctor says, here, I've got this drug and this is the panacea, this will give you the keys to the castle of thin privilege where people like you, promote you, pay you more, respect you more. Here you go. So, of course, it makes sense that people would want to do the miracle cure. But we need to really look very carefully at the impact of these drugs. And first of all, the reality is that people need to stay on them for the rest of their lives. And we don't have the research of what this is doing to us for long term. We do have that it's had good impact for people who have diabetes. But now it's being used completely differently. And there are statistics coming back that 2/3 of the people who are participants in trials regained, not 2/3, that participants regained 2/3 of their weight loss in trials. And there's impact like bone weakening, muscle weakening. And so that's really problematic. There's a lot of gallbladder issues that are coming up. There are liver issues that are coming up. And more in my world of expertise, there's disordered eating being really triggered, either worsening or new onset eating disorders or disordered eating is coming up. And it happens for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of digestive problems. Then I'm not hungry. Then I'm so not hungry, I've lost my appetite. Now I feel like, oh my gosh, it's really good. I'm not eating and now I'm losing weight. So maybe I should continue to not eat, right? Oh, but now I'm eating, this seems like a lot of food. Maybe I ate too much. And now we have this endless conversation in our head about food and about what we ate and how our body looks. And is this is where this gets feminist. Is that really where you want all your energy and all your smarts and all your power in the world to go? On what you just ate and how many calories you ingested and how much weight you lost? That's the part where I'm like, this is so disempowering.
Well put. Well put. I mean, it's, again, we live in a culture where quick fixes are elevated and long-term processes are discouraged. And, any work we do on our body and on our mind and on our spirit takes a lifetime, quite frankly. We're always learning, hopefully, and we're always kind of tweaking and we're always saying, that really didn't work for me. Let me try a different way. Or that worked for me. Let's try that, but not become obsessive about it. It's being open to that process is part of what you're describing. And these medications, you're absolutely right, that there's not long-term study. And the trouble is, for example, I know physicians who work in the world of cancer. They're all for these drugs because they're seeing women lose their body weight, get they're no longer obese and thus reduce the risk of breast cancer risks and uterine cancer risks. And oh, isn't this great? And, yes, it's great to reduce cancer risks without a doubt. But at the same time, what are you trading off? And again, you're not changing really the narrative that we've been talking about all morning. Is like, how do I create a conversation with my body and relationship with my body that is with integrity, with some acceptance of its volatility? I love that you preface this whole conversation with, it's kind of like the partner you have in, sleeping next to you, or a friendship, or, that these relationships, every relationship we have in our lives is they're volatile. Some days they're great and some days they're not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we get to inform that relationship.
That's right.
We get to choose that relationship.
Yeah.
We're not stuck in it. Recently, a client of mine said, when we were talking, we were unpacking her relationship with her body. And when we were really looking at what she says to her body and how she treats her body, she suddenly got really quiet and said, oh my gosh, I've been in an abusive relationship with my body for decades. For decades. She said, I wouldn't stand for this. If anyone else treated me this way, I would never treat anyone else this way. But somehow I thought this was okay.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to move towards closing, because I want to point out, I think we both have been pointing out all morning in this conversation, is this is work. This is not easy. That, again, there are going to be days where you have a really loving relationship towards your body, and there are going to be days where you are really critical. And that we all come to this conversation and relationship with different amounts of trauma and stress and heritage. My grandmother used to say to my mother used to say to me, now I say it to my daughter, that these conversations, narratives, storylines are passed down in generations. So there's a lot of unpacking to do. So to those of you out there listening to this conversation, please, if you have the resources to access someone like Nina, please, because it's not just, how do I create a relationship with my body? We're talking about creating a relationship kind of in the world with all that we carry with us, and we all have a lot of baggage, and some of it we're aware of and some of it we're not, which is, you just gave this great example of the woman who realized, wait, I'm abusing my body or my relationship and how I think about it. So again, this is not easy. This is why I have this conversation multiple times now on Gynocurious, because everybody has a slightly different take on it. And our goal is to help people be in their bodies in a healthy way, a loving way, a realistic way, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sustainable.
That's, thank you. So as we come to a close, I like to ask guests what gives them pleasure. We don't talk enough about it. So Nina, what gives you pleasure?
For me, it's water. I swim in pools, I swim in oceans, I swim at Walden Pond. I love drinking water. I love drinking tea. I love soaking in hot floats. I love being in hot springs. Just put me in water and I relax. I'm like, my nervous system shifts and I am in pleasure. So water is my quick access point to pleasure.
May it surround you in a healthy way. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for joining me today. Really, thank you. And thank you to the audience, to those listening. Thank you to my co-producers, Jen Hammoud and Maddie Rosenberg. Thank you to the Epicurean, who is this lovely store in Rhinecliff, New York, which houses Radio Free Rhinecliff. Thanks again. Until our next episode, please stay well. Listen to your instincts and intuitions. They are the greatest of teachers, not to be ignored.